Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. It is Ask the Experts here on Talk Radio 1190. We interview local prominent professionals in the Dallas-Fort Worth area on, well, their area of expertise, of course. I'm the host of the show, Matt Cather, and joining me on today's show, always a pleasure having him on Ask the Experts. It's Josh Stripmatter of Stripmatter Wealth Management Group. Josh Stripmatter is the founder and president of Stripmatter Wealth Management Group, a registered investment advisor located in downtown Fort Worth, Texas. Josh is a certified financial planner and fiduciary that's been practicing since 2003 here in the DFW. His firm specializes in retirement planning, estate planning, and investment management, and all information discussed in today's program is meant to be for educational purposes only. And for more information, including key disclosures, just visit their website at stripmatterwealth.com. I'll spell that out for you one time, folks. It's STRITTMATTER wealth.com. Good morning, Josh. How are you doing today?
Doing great, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Very excited for today's show. I know we're going to cover a lot of information. We got a great topic of a conversation that we have set up for today on Ask the Experts. Before we get to that, Josh, I know that you love to educate and you're always teaching classes and writing articles. So why don't you tell our listeners what you have for them today, sir?
Matt, I am always excited to talk about what we do from an education standpoint, and we've been teaching classes at several colleges in the area for over a decade now. So if you're interested in learning more about retirement planning or investing, just go to our website to sign up. Something else I'm excited about is our new class titled Retire Using Real Estate Investing. Matt, that's a great class for people who are interested in investing in real estate and especially interested in helping them diversify their investments into real estate and maybe creating some income in retirement from real estate. And you can tell them how to sign up for that.
Absolutely, folks. All you need to do today to sign up for this class, you go to stripmatterwealth.com. You click on education and then college courses. So go to stripmatterwealth.com, click on education and college courses, and you can get signed up for Retire Using Real Estate Investing, a great class that they are offering. You can also email them at info@stripmatterwealth.com. That's info@stripmatterwealth.com, or simply just give them a call. They'd love to hear from you. It's 817-210-3444. It's 817-210-3444. Now, Josh, I know I mentioned earlier, and we tend to do this every week, that you gear your show around a theme. Well, why don't you tell our listeners more about the theme for this week?
Matt, this week's theme is restricted stock units. So these are some really great questions that we've received around restricted stock units.
Restricted stock units is the topic of conversation today with Josh Stripmatter here on Ask the Experts. Very excited for that. And I guess we'll just jump right into the first question. Josh, was kick it off with Cody in Weatherford. Cody was wondering, well, what is a restricted stock unit and how does it work?
So, Cody, a restricted stock unit is a benefit that your employer provides to you as an incentive. And so they're called grants. So a grant is basically the benefit. And the grant is valued in terms of the company stock, but the company stock is not issued at the time that the grant is given. So you actually get a unit, and essentially what happens is you have to vest in order to be able to be eligible for that stock in the future. So for whatever that vesting is, it's typically an amount of time that has to pass that you have to work for that employer before you earn that stock. And so when that stock vests, when it becomes eligible to be yours, you would then actually take possession of that stock and then you would own it from that point forward. And so, Cody, the big picture is basically it's an incentive that a company provides to you as an employee to get you to stick around typically for a long period of time, or to incentivize you for other projects that you might be working on that are long-term projects. But essentially the stock vests at a future date, and you then take possession of that stock at that time.
This one's coming from Nadine in Irving. Nadine asks, are there any tax consequences that I need to be aware of if I'm granted restricted stock units, Josh?
So, Nadine, what you need to be aware of is that you're not taxed at the time that they give the restricted stock units, but rather whenever they vest. And so once they vest, you're going to be taxed at whatever your ordinary income tax rates. And so sometimes they'll give you either the stock or they'll cash it out and you'll receive the actual cash rather than the stocks. In either case, you're going to have to pay taxes. And so what a lot of companies will do is actually give you less stock and therefore take the tax from the stock or take it from the cash that you receive. But yes, you do pay tax on it, and it's ordinary income tax when you receive it. And if you hold, by the way, if you hold the stock after you've exercised it, then you would be taxed upon long-term capital or short-term capital gains taxes, depending on your hold time. So again, tax when you receive it, and then if you hold it for longer than that, there's additional tax.
Next question is coming from Jay in Haltom City. Jay asks, well, what are my options for paying my tax withholding obligation once my restricted stock units vest, Josh? That's a good question.
Yeah, so Jay, that's what I was just referencing. And so because you do owe tax, the employer is required to withhold that tax, but you get to choose on how you do that. And you can choose to have the stock basically sell off the stock to pay the taxes, and therefore you get less stock. Or if you're already receiving cash, you get less cash. You can also decide to send in the taxes as well, so you can basically contribute cash to pay the taxes. So you have different options in terms of how you pay those taxes, but you will owe taxes, Jay, and so you just need to be prepared for that whenever it's time for those stocks for when they vest.
Remember, folks, we're talking with Josh Stripmatter today on Ask the Answer. It's always a pleasure to have him with us, bringing us a lot of information on restricted stock units. Remember, stripmatterwealth.com is the website. That's stripmatterwealth.com. The phone number you can reach out to the fine folks over there is 817-210-3444. It's 817-210-3444 is the phone number you can reach Strip Matter Wealth Management Group at. Of course, their office is located in downtown Fort Worth, Texas. We got a couple more questions before we take a break here on Ask the Experts. We're going to go to Weatherford again from Marianne this time, though. She was wondering, how are restricted stock units different from stock options, and are stock options better?
Great question, Marianne. So how I would answer that is that both are a type of employee equity compensation. So again, provided by your employer. But restricted stock units are given to the employee free of charge and only have financial value as actual stock shares once they've vested. Whereas stock options give the employee the right to buy company stock at a specific price, which they call the strike price, and they have value only when the market price is higher than the strike price. So different in terms of how they work, but the benefit of the restricted stock units are you don't pay for them. So it's just considered compensation, which is pretty nice.
All right, one more question, Josh, before we take that said break that I was talking about. But before we get to that, Brandon in Dallas, well, he was asking, why might a company want to issue restricted stock units instead of actual equity?
So, Brandon, companies do this as basically an incentive that is usually time-based. So, again, they vest at a future date. So it's based on, if it's looking at a performance metric, or it's based on your longevity. So how long do you plan on staying there? And so it's a future incentive, whereas if they give stock, you would automatically own that stock. And, obviously you would own it, so you can sell it and you can be on your merry way. Beyond that, though, there's something called dilution of stock. So if they issue additional stock, that dilutes the existing quantity of stocks that they have that's outstanding. And so that affects other people that own the stock's prices. So companies try to avoid dilution if possible. And so restricted stock units is one way to defer that into the future, if that makes sense.
All right, folks, we got to take a quick break here on Ask the Experts. Remember, we're joined with Josh Stripmatter of Stripmatter Wealth Management Group today. Topic conversation, restricted stock units. A lot of information we covered. We still got a ton to get to on the other side of things. So stay tuned. This is Ask the Experts here on Talk Radio 1190. Quick break. We'll be right back, folks. Welcome back to the show. Hope everybody's enjoying their Saturday morning. This is Ask the Experts here on Talk Radio 1190. I'm the host of the show, Matt Cather. Joining me on today's show, Josh Stripmatter of Stripmatter Wealth Management Group. Before we get back to Josh, of course, we're discussing on today's show with him is restricted stock units. If you want to reach out to him, first you can find him online at stripmatterwealth.com. It's stripmatterwealth.com. Phone number is 817-210-3444. That's 817-210-3444. His office is located in downtown Fort Worth, Texas. Always great to have him on the show. And I tell you what, Josh, let's just jump right back into it. Pick up where we left off on this conversation we're having about restricted stock units. We still have a lot I want to get to, and I know you're going to feed us some good information. Yvette from Southlake. Well, she was wondering, what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of restricted stock units?
So, Yvette, there are great advantages, and there are some disadvantages. So let's go through those. So some of the advantages are that it provides an incentive for employees to stay with the company for the long term and basically help it perform well so that their shares will increase in value. So as an employee, obviously you want the value of that stock to go up because that's additional compensation that you're going to receive. So it incentivizes the employee to stay longer or to complete their objectives, and therefore everybody wins. The company wins, the employee wins whenever they receive the restricted stock units and the stock value goes up. Also, administration cost is minimal for employers, so they prefer these. It doesn't dilute the stock as the shares of the company stock, as I mentioned, so that's also a benefit to the employers. It delays that, I should say. And the disadvantages would be that the restricted stock units don't provide dividends before they vest. So as an employee, you're not going to receive the dividends that the stocks kick out to you until they vest and you actually own them. Also, as I mentioned, the restricted stock is included in your gross income for tax purposes, so you're going to have to pay tax on it, and nobody likes to pay tax. And then there's a couple other things. Voting rights is something that you get with some share class of stock, and so restricted stock units don't have voting rights until the stock actually vests. And then one other thing, there's a certain tax code that our restricted stock units don't get to participate in, which is Section IRC 83B election, which allows an employee to pay taxes before vesting, and they don't get to participate in that. They have to pay taxes once they've vested. So those are some of the disadvantages.
Moving right along, Josh, this one's coming out of Hearst from Marion. Marion asks, well, should I sell my restricted stock units immediately?
Yeah, Marion. So, when we have clients that have these, we generally tell them that it is advantageous to sell the shares right away. And the reason why is that you're taking on additional risks that you don't have to, unless you really like the company's stock that you own, but you're paying tax on that stock, and so if the stock value goes down after you purchase it, essentially you pay tax on a higher amount, and so there is that disadvantage of that in terms of the taxation. Another reason is that again is if you own stock in your 401k, as an example, company stock in your 401k, you may own a lot of your company stock, and we see this with some employers out there where some of the employees have a very large percentage of their 401k, as an example, in their company stock, and then they have their stock options and the restricted stock units that are in the company stock, and so the portfolio becomes very saturated with the company stock, and so it might make more sense to diversify, and especially with restricted stock units, those are the first things that we tell them to sell because, again, of what the tax reasons I just talked about. And then, the other thing is everybody remembers Enron, so everybody thinks their company is the greatest company until it's not, so we generally tell people own no more than 10 to 20% of your company stock just because you want to make sure you're well diversified and if the company takes a hit that you don't lose all of your savings. So those are some of the things that we tell clients, Marion, around selling their restricted stock.
Now, Josh, I know that we mentioned this before, but I want to make sure we kind of talk about it a little bit. You got the new class out called Retire Using Real Estate Investing. We mentioned it before in the first half of things. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about that before we continue on?
Absolutely, man. It's a really great class that I'm excited about. So we're touching on lots of different topics, and I think the great thing for me as I was writing that class, I've invested in real estate for a long time, and I've enjoyed it. And we also offer real estate through our company as well, real estate investing, as well as property management. And so one of the great things about the class is that it really is for beginners and it's for experts. So I've got some really good content in this class. It's a 3-hour class. And we'll be teaching at it at UTA as well as Tarleton and Fort Worth and TCC in South Fort Worth. So we're teaching at 3 different locations.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and so it's a fantastic class for anybody who's interested in learning more about investing in real estate, and again, just learning how to use that in their portfolio to help diversify it and create some income for retirement.
So, folks, if you're around the DFW, you got options. You don't have to travel too far. They'll be at different locations, so that really makes it a little bit easier on people to get signed up for class. I really like that you're doing it at multiple universities. Very cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, but remember, if you do want to sign up for that, all you got to do is go to stripmatterwealth.com. It's stripmatterwealth.com. You click on education and then college courses. That's a good route to take. You also can give them a call at 817-210-3444. It's 817-210-3444. And a couple more questions before we wrap up today's show on Ask the Experts with Josh Stripmatter of Stripmatter Wealth Management Group. Well, Chester in Fort Worth, where, of course, his office is located at, he asks, how do I get taxed on the dividends from restricted stock units, Josh?
Well, Chester, that's an easy answer because you don't earn dividends or receive dividends from restricted stock units until they actually vest. And then once they vest, they're treated just like any other dividends. So either qualified or non-qualified. And so I would say as it relates to this topic, you don't need to worry about it until it vests.
This one's also coming out of Fort Worth, Josh. It's from Dexter this time. Dexter asks, for a private company, how is the value of the stock determined? I'm curious myself.
Yeah, Dexter, that's a great question. And so when you have a private company, the company will typically have some sort of valuation method. And so it could be a formula, could be that they get an appraisal done every year for the company. But the company stock will fluctuate just as any publicly traded stock, and so there's restricted stock will be based on the value of that company's stock, just like it would if it was publicly traded. So it's just the question is how does the company value its stock? And again, that company has a formula for how they do that, and that formula would be given to you, and so that you would know, or at least how they value it is given, so that people can know how the company's valued.
Last but not least, well, Alfred in Benbrook was wondering, how can Strip Matter Wealth help me with restricted stock units?
Absolutely, Alfred. So, as I've mentioned several times on this show, we do comprehensive financial planning, and part of that is helping clients to understand their workplace benefits, and restricted stock units is one of those benefits that we specialize in, and basically help you understand exactly what you're getting, and especially when you're talking about compensation, we talk about what is your total compensation to you, help educate you on what you can expect, and then also how much you should save, how much you should keep in the company stock, and whether or not you should sell it. So all of those things are how we help you come to a decision on what to do with restricted stocks units, but also even beyond that is what you do with your total package from your employer. And that's how we can help you, Alfred.
All right, well, unfortunately, Josh, we ran out of time on today's Ask the Experts. We covered a lot of information, though, so that's a good thing. But before we close out the show, do you have any closing remarks for our listeners out there?
Absolutely, Matt. I want to thank our listeners, as always, for their great questions and for tuning in today. I also want to invite them to sign up for our financial education classes, or they're welcome to just schedule a complimentary consultation. What that looks like is a 1 to 2 hour meeting in our office where we talk about your goals and objectives and help you to begin to formulate a plan to achieve them. Also want to encourage our listeners to sign up for our new class that we just talked about, Retire Using Real Estate Investing. Also, Matt, we've got some other great classes coming up that are in full swing right now. So if they go to our website and you can tell them how to do that, they can see all the classes that are coming up between now and in the midsummer months. We've got a ton of classes that we'll be teaching.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you got a couple options, though, if you want to go and sign up for their classes. Of course, the main goal here is, well, to tell you how to get to those classes and get signed up for them. You go to stripmatterwealth.com, STRITTMATTER wealth.com. You click on education and then college courses. And like he said, there's going to be a couple new ones coming up. Very cool. So check that out. You click on education and then college courses, and you can get signed up for those classes. And then also email them at info@stripmatterwealth.com. That's info@stripmatterwealth.com. You can give them a call. It's 817-210-3444. It's 817-210-3444. Well, Josh, always a pleasure having you on the show. I think that was a pretty awesome one we put on today, and I know we'll do it again here in the future. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Matt.
Yes, of course. You've been listening to Josh Stripmatter, owner of Stripmatter Wealth Management Group, located in downtown Fort Worth, Texas. Josh is a certified financial planner and fiduciary, and his firm specializes in retirement planning, estate planning, and investment management. If you'd like to ask him questions directly, just email him at info@stripmatterwealth.com or give him a call, 817-210-3444. It's 817-210-3444. Another great Ask the Experts with Josh Stripmatter in the book. Always a pleasure having him on the show. And like we talked before, we'll definitely do it again with him here in the near future. Until then, you've been listening to Ask the Experts on Talk Radio 1190. I'm the host of the show, Matt Cather. Have a good day, folks.